24 hours. That's the much everybody can take, can have in a day. And truly speaking, for some, it's a burden. For others, it's normal. 24 hours is natural. But for a lot of people, 24 hours, it's more or less like too short a time in a day. But you can't have more than that. And that's the bad news. Well, the good news is that whatever it is, no matter how fast it speeds and no matter how fast it goes, you are the pilot. You decide on what to do with the time. And of course, you know which aspect of it you want to use, how you want to value it, and the rest of them. This is not by the way. My name is Yusuf Usman, and the program is Reflections. It's reaching you from the Nigerian Television Authority, the largest TV network in Africa. Every week on this program, we invite personalities into our studios to look at this issue of time and then see how their time become of value to themselves and to humanity generally, talking about their national endeavors and international touchings. This week, we shall be talking to ourselves, literally, if I may really put it that way. I will be hosting one of our own, one of our bosses, and of course, one of us who really is in the business, has been in the business, and I believe is going to remain in the business. When I remember somebody who said, he is a journalist, and he wants to remain a journalist for the rest of his life. My personality is a broadcaster by excellence. He's a broadcast manager. He's a consultant, a media consultant for that matter. He is 72 years old. My personality is no any other person but Chief Timawus Mathias, the Zomblayata Hamopachama. Did I put it right, sir?
You did it correctly.
You're welcome to Reflections.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful for you inviting me to this program.
72 years old, still kicking, still looking younger than that.
Glory to God.
How was it? How has it been all these years? I mean, how do you feel at 72?
It's with a lot of gratitude to God Almighty that at 72 one is still hale and hearty in spite of several challenges that are common to people of my age. And worse still, I have been in a fatal accident and survived. Like someone put it, I nearly got decapitated. But here I am, 10 years even after the accident, and life is going on. So it's with a lot of gratitude to God Almighty. I have come to realize that a human being is made of many parts. Some of the parts can die, but if the spirit and the mind stay alive, then life goes on.
The spirit in the human being is the one that pushes him to do a lot of things. And of course, as we said, time is most important. You've had a life in the media. You've gone through so many things in the media, most especially Nigerian Television Authority. Let's look at that media life and then see what really came out of it to date. I can remember here in Yola where you were really practicing, going through some of the memos. I knew you were sometimes somewhere in coma when you are in the Madaki days, when in codes coma was discovered, and you followed it up with a walkthrough like a media man, and you got something out of it. That experience still lingers on. It fetched you a lot. How did you feel about that?
Well, I owe it to the opportunity that I was given to be a staffer of NTA and to do the thing I love very much. And I tell my children that let the things you love be the work you do, and you will never need a job in your whole life. I loved my work.
Right.
I got into it very early in life from Radio Voice of the Gospel in Jos when I was a student in the secondary school. And I was fortunate. I got accepted at Radio Television Kaduna in 1972 and served there for 8 years before I was posted to Yola. And because of that, I am grateful to the system because it offered me an opportunity to express myself.
Okay.
And to me, the trip to Coma was quite an expression. To begin with, it was not a discovery by Johanna Madaki. Coma had always been there. Many Sudan United Mission missionaries have been there The people had a way of life that Madaki never knew about. And if he went there, he cannot say, oh, I have discovered Koma. It has always been there.
Right.
But the national media preferred that a discovery has been made of a new mountain tribe. And since they carried that along, no matter what you did to change that narrative, it wouldn't fly. They preferred that Koma was newly discovered. But Koma was a broadcasting challenge.
Right.
Because at that time, you can remember Professor Ali Mazrui had just done the heritage documentaries.
The triple heritage.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the heritage documentaries and I was saying to myself, if I ever have an opportunity to do something, I would attain those standards.
Okay.
And so when I visited Koma with the NTA crew, I decided that it was better to also match Ali Mazrui so that we can tell the world that we can do it even locally here.
Why did you visit Koma?
I visited Koma, first of all, to put to lie the story that it had been discovered.
Right.
Then I was interested in going there because I needed to record the life as it was, since I knew that they were going to be impacted by the change of modernity. As soon as they were discovered, it became a heaven for visitors and fraudsters, naturally. People who took pictures and sent them abroad and got monies from donor agencies to put civilization in their minds.
Right.
So I wanted to put all this across the country to show them what it was. Now, something interesting happened in Koma. They don't have matches.
Okay.
So how do they strike a flame if they want to cook? So I recorded that sequence where they take a stone and put a flint on it and some cotton, and what our people call kestu. How many young children today know that? It has disappeared in history, but that was what they used to strike and get a fire to either cook or to burn grass or to do anything. And I was able to capture that in a documentary and saved that for children for generations yet unborn. So Koma was quite a discovery for me in a way, and I'm glad that we put some of the things that we did in record. We discovered, for instance, that Koma traditional music is actually classical jazz.
Right.
You can imagine classical jazz being played by no foreign instrument. All were traditional instruments, drums, cymbals, xylophones, yet you got the kind of jazz that any jazz musician can put together and play.
Okay.
There were a lot of values that we found in Koma, and I hope that those intrinsic cultural values still remain.
What came out of it? Your visit?
The documentary got accolades. It won NTA Yola an award. And then after that, the state government set up a Koma Resettlement Committee and made me chairman. And it got into a controversy, that one too, because without the government releasing the funds meant for the resettlement, somebody announced that the money was missing. So if you didn't get the allocated money, how could it be missing in your hands? And if the person who has the money did not declare that it was missing, how did the newspaper find out that it was missing? And that was quite sad. And unfortunately, the resettlement committee, the resettlement of Koma did not take place.
Okay.
Just like I also knew. Because you see, you cannot force resettled people. They were not on the mountain because they were forced to. They are on the mountain because that is their life. So if resettlement was going to take place, they needed to be resettled on the mountain, their values maintained. They needed markets opened for them so that they would be able to have the same kind of life that we're having here. And it affected my worldview of rehabilitation and resettlement. And I count it as a gain, not a loss.
So that was too far gone in the years, really. Were you able to maybe take a trace back to Koma after years of that visit and see what's happening there?
Yes, but this time not for a documentary.
Yeah, sure.
I just went there to keep track of some of the friends that I made. The trip we made to Koma was able to bring some people down. We had some young people who became teachers, attended Federal College of Education here in Yola. One of them became a successful politician, and the lady for that matter. We had a graduate of Koma, who is now a member of the academic staff of Adamawa State University, and quite several others that have gone far in different places.
Okay.
It definitely opened up the place.
All right. Now let's look at other aspects of your life, talking about the NTA job, and then how you went through some of them. I could remember as far back as 1979 when the Second Republic was ushered in. Before it was ushered in, you were part of the media election process. I must put it that way. And you were a stringer at the time, really, for the verdict 79.
Yes.
And of course, verdict 80, now 83, where you anchored. How did you feel at the time, seeing the military giving way, the civilians coming in, and of course, that euphoria in the public and of course in the media?
You know, when the military said they are voluntarily going to hand over power, the real politicians did not believe it. So if you check, you will discover that most of the people who played politics 79 were teachers, mostly people who dwelled among the community, like here in Adamawa State. Abubakar Barde was a civil servant, Reno Sungushi, Garba Alfa-Tarfa, all of them were civil servants.
Yeah.
You did not see the real top politicians because they were not confident that the military would voluntarily hand over power. The second thing is they were already in the comfort zone of the economy. They were either as investors or businessmen, and they were doing well with the military. And if they had it their way, they would rather have that continue. And so by the end of 79, it turned out that these people who were regarded as the underdogs had really made it. Barde became the governor of Gongola State and appointed a cabinet like his own, which angered the real intelligentsia of Adamawa State, and that led to their decision to rush back in 1983.
Yeah.
But in 79, I was a stringer from Yola. And the group of progressive governors were to hold a meeting here in Yola, and it was a political contention because Alhaji Aminu Kano had directed his governors not to attend.
Okay.
So I was at the airport, and a plane landed. And as the governors were coming out, I saw Balarabe Musa for Kaduna State, and I saw Abubakar Rimi coming out of the plane. My immediate worry was, my goodness, FRCN is going to break this story because they can get the story before NTA gets it. How could I get this story to NTA in time for the network news today? There was no satellite then.
What were you then?
I was the manager news.
Right, okay.
So I took the tape out of the camera. We were using the old Betacam tapes at the time. I took the tape out of the camera, packaged it, and talked to the pilot. I said, kindly take this tape with you. At the airport, you'll be met by a staff from NTA. I beg you, please deliver it to the NTA network news desk. And on the NTA news desk was John Chairman and Richard Azoro. They were sitting down and wondering how that tape would come when I sent them a message through telex, because there was no communication then, that I'd sent them the tape and that this was the development. But I was not satisfied. I called FRCN. And, you know, because I was an old staff of FRCN, I was willing to give them the story, and I did a live report from the airport. So, but my idea was to tag NTA at the time, and they were able to do it. They took my voice over that I gave to FRCN, and they were able to get the tape from the airport, and the tape was edited with my voice over on it, and the story ran. That began a relationship between me and John Chairman, who was on the network desk, and I was here in Yola. And we became a pair for all major news projects, the international travels and tours. And so I was not surprised when in 1983, Patrick Itiohe, who was the DG then, decided that I would anchor Verdict 83. I didn't know that I was going to anchor Verdict 83. I was told the night before I went on air that you were anchoring Verdict 83, and the credit tags have already been done and all that. And it was a wonderful operation. But when we sat down and decided how to fashion Verdict 83, we said, what is the point in doing anything in an election period? Let it be 24-hour news. And so we began to do 24-hour news. We were bicycling tapes from all the regions of Nigeria. And I always say it, we were able to establish the first 24-hour network news outfit, I think, in the whole world. because CNN had not come up then.
I mean, the whole world.
Yes. CNN was not available until 1987.
Yeah, but the BBC was there.
BBC was not doing 24 hours news. BBC was packaging news and programs, but news after news after news with a news item coming after another one, and you're still keeping the currency. I think we were the first.
Wow, that's great. Now, what really happened along the line? That was as far back as 1983, and look at where we are today. Maybe before you left, could you just refresh our minds on what really happened?
I think it is the outcome of transition.
Right.
And the fact that we play the game like what somebody called the Ugandan changing of the guards, where the incoming guards shoot the outgoing ones and wait for the next team to come and shoot them, and it continues. And consequently, we lost a lot of valuable products. We started a project with Patrick Ichohe, Voices and Visions. And the next management after Patrick swept Voices and Visions into the cooler. In fact, destroyed the tapes. You can't find them anymore now. And these were projects that were painstakingly made in answer to CNN's Sights and Sounds.
Yeah, sure.
We admit that we copied CNN's Sights and Sounds, but there was something unique about Voices and Visions that we did. In our case, there was audio follow. In CNN, it was just a multiple composite, what do you call it now? Montage of shots, one after the other. But in our case, we presented a state and left you guessing which state it was until the payoff came, Voices and Visions of Gombe. You know, then you understood that, oh yeah. And we presented a country, Nigeria, that was lovable, that was admirable, that you really wanted to visit. And if you saw what we did with Calabar, what we did with Benue, what we did with Katsina, what we did with Kano, and there was a lot that we packaged there. We gave every arts council a syllabus to do a pantomime on national unity. And so we had packaged this also into different types of dances, but the situation is that there are people who don't appreciate art and therefore could not see what we did as a medium of powerful communication, not the way we saw it. And that has also been jettisoned, and Nigeria is still the same.
This is the bane in this country, most especially talking about continuity now in processes, methods, approaches, and even governance. Continuity becomes the bane of our survival in this country. So much so that you find good initiatives, good projects, having to be jettisoned along the line because of changes in government. You that has been at the center of this, and I know you felt really bad about it. How do you feel today?
No, I think I ascribe it to planlessness. You see, if you travel to the UK now, you want to do a research on Nigeria from independence, you will find all the visuals at the BBC archives. You can go to the film school, who are editing some of our films from the National Film Council, and you can get the historical visuals from there. But here in Nigeria, no television station can afford to keep visuals of 1 month because events are recycled. Even now, the decision to buy a hard drive and store visuals has not been institutionalized.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's no sense of history. And people are hamstrung by budgetary considerations because you don't have the money to do it. In NTA, we couldn't keep tapes because as hard as you tried to retain some of the tapes of the coverages that you had, there came a time when you needed the new event and you didn't have a tape, so you gave the old tape. So and it is because there was no plan to set up a media organization the way we have done. The budget for media is another charge in the budget for the Ministry of Information, and it is never enough.
Okay.
And it makes a case for the private sector to compete with the government media organizations, because the private sector it's an investment for them. They're probably making money. They may value a library. Now, if I need visuals now from the UK, I have to pay the BBC for a minute of visuals. I pay. For 2 minutes, I pay. For a voiceover, I pay. NTA can make such money. But NTA does not have a visual bank that people can access, at least not in the quality that they desire if they were trying to do some work. And I think that this is something that we have to address.
How do you address that?
By deliberately institutionalizing a library policy in the organization. We have the capacity to do it. We have to institutionalize a library policy, especially now that you can pack all your visuals and put them on a hard drive. Now, I know that many staff are doing it individually. Every news editor has his own hard drive to keep some of the visuals that he knows he may come back to. But the organization itself has to really beef up a library culture.
All right. Now, as you said, you've been in love with music all from childhood days, and that is why you got started into the media thing, I remember. And then in the NTA, where you really served, worked, and then retired, and still working with them, you are part of two great music, musical items or projects I can remember. One is the Koja opening ceremony, music, and of course the other one is the network news sick tune. What really was it?
Well, music is a talent that I discovered early because my father taught me how to play a number of instruments, the harmonica and the flute. He taught me himself. He taught me some songs himself. So I grew up in music. My brother played the organ in church. So music has been in the family. And the guitar was always in the family. But when I joined Radio Television Kaduna, I had a pastime to play music for children in the children's hour. And that's where I got the name Uncle Tim. And usually I wrote and played songs that taught the children something and left them with a message. And then in NTA, when we did the sick tune for Verdict 83, Dr. Patrick Echohe was then the DG. And he's also a musically minded person. And we were working out of Steve Rhodes' studio. And I want to take some time and pay tribute to Sir Steve Rhodes, who I believe should have received a national honor because of the contributions that he has made to the development of music in Nigeria. It was Steve Rhodes that produced the current national network news jingle, but under our guidance. Now, what were we looking for? We were looking for a collage of instruments from all parts of the country. And we needed him to make sounds that ended up on a pregnant note. So that if you had the tam-tam, if you had the tambourine, if you had the kalangu, if you had the kakaki, which was common to all of the nations, and you had the, the xylophones and the wooden drums, you ended up with a cacophony that was nice to listen to. But what was the pregnant note? If you notice that the NTA News jingle starts with the alligator. Alligator is common to the Hausa, the Yoruba, and the Igbo. They have it. Now, and it ran through the jingle. Then at the end, it went like, tara, 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 tara. Good evening. That was what we wanted. We wanted the music to hang on a pregnant note, and the newscaster, you cut to the newscaster. And so it was exciting. We worked out of Steve Rhodes' studios in Lagos, and we were able to get that result. Now, the Koja one was done in Abuja, in Quest Media Studios. And it was done by my children to begin with. They were working with Koreans to produce the theme music for Koja. And I was passing by the studio when I discovered that they had some difficulty. So there was a language barrier problem. They didn't know what the Koreans wanted. So I looked at the Koreans and I said, what is this? Then they said they were here for Koja. So I quickly got the All Africa games, Sikh tune, and I played one of them. And when the Koreans heard it, they said, yeah. So I called my children, we went up, and then we worked on the 5 different songs that eventually became the theme music for Koja. Jeremiah Gyang was with us, was Nedu, and my late nephew now, Saula Mbotakto Blast, he's late now. So we didn't even know it will make a mark. It got criticized. They said the jingles were not national, and they were. The only thing is, we didn't want to present Nigeria to the incoming countries. We wanted to present something that was totally African, but with a Nigerian flair.
Right.
And I think we achieved that.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Congratulations, brother.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. In case you are just joining us, the program is Reflections. We are reaching you from the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. We'll now take a break. We'll be back to talk more with Chief Timawus Mathias on this program. Why not stay back? Welcome back. When you go through the social media today, hardly can there be, time spent without seeing you there. At least give yourself an hour, you sit in there. It's always like sometimes I ask myself, really, does he have time? What time is it? Is that the life after retirement? But after coming to see you and then talk to you and they hear much about you, it seems as if you don't even have the time. And that is basically why I started with the time, 24 hours being not too enough for a lot of people and the rest of them. The social media thing, how do you manage your platforms on the social media? WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, right? And a host of others on Twitter. You are all over the place. I mean, is 24 hours enough for you?
I must confess there are times when I wished I had more than 24 hours to my day. But social media, the discovery of the ability to sit in your living room and chat with over 5,000 people is a tremendous breakthrough in communication. Because I left NTA, the first thing I missed was my audience. The knowledge that I am talking to a multitude. I missed that. And social media brought that back to me. It gave me a platform to be able to keep that multitude with me. And I also discovered that if your mind is alive, you can live many generations. There are posts in which I'm a child, then there are others in which I'm a youth. In some, I am middle age, and then in others, I'm an old man that's retired. And when I look at the cross section, it is satisfying to be able to live through those generations, so to speak, in a day. I think that social media is a tremendous achievement. 2 problems come to my mind. The specter of fake news, because social media has given capacity to an individual to be a citizen journalist. You can sit here, concoct a news item and fly it. And many people will believe it. The political class believes that the social media is the biggest medium, that if they can talk to you and go back on their way home, they see their picture on your phone, they think 2 million people have seen it. It's a fallacy. It is not so. Nothing beats the conventional media as far as publicity is concerned. Then the other problem we have now, which has emerged, is that a lot of people who are really not journalists are trying to play journalists on social media, and that is causing problems, leading to the fact that the National Assembly wants to legislate a law to say that you have to be a degree holder to practice journalism. My feeling is that it is important for every journalist to acquire a degree. It is very important. It is important for a journalist to educate himself to the point of getting a degree. But it must not be a yardstick for being a journalist, because journalism, like music, is a talent. Somebody is born with capacity to write. What I think the National Assembly should do is to legislate control of what is written, control of what is spoken. That is what you can control. But they are going the wrong way. They want to control the human being. You can't, it's against the natural law that a man must express himself freely. So if expressing yourself freely to a public medium that you cannot control is not possible unless you have a degree, then your functional institutional rights have been trampled upon, and I don't think that will fly. So those are the ways I'm looking at it. I think that there is a conflict between the mainstream media and the social media. And I'm glad that Bayero University is taking a course in two fields. One, public relations. You can graduate with a BSc in public relations in Bayero University now. That's very, very good. The other one is you can also graduate in the new media in Bayero University. I think it's a wonderful innovation because these are technical developments that have overwhelmed us. We can't control it. The big tech companies now rule who can say anything. Like if they can ban a man like Donald Trump and take him off Twitter, take him off WhatsApp, take him off Facebook, and suddenly Donald Trump is frustrated because he cannot speak. How can you sit in Nigeria and think that you can stop people from writing just because they don't have a college degree? It's a waste of time. That's how I felt about it.
But what about regulation, like the federal government is trying to do, regulating the activities on the social media?
Yes. You see, all the regulatory functions are there. Take NBC, for instance, the National Broadcasting Commission. You dare not abuse NBC laws if you're running a radio station, because there's a monitoring service. They monitor the radio station, they check infractions, and they fine you. So there we have a field that is regulated and everybody is behaving himself. You can do the same for social media. You monitor what people are saying. You check, look at the thing that happened in Ibadan. It's a simple fight between a man from Niger led to a situation where suddenly houses were being killed because somebody posted the wrong story on social media. So it is the output that needs to be regulated, not the people doing it, because you don't have the capacity your children are sitting in the room and playing with their phones. They are on WhatsApp, they are on Facebook. They are probably there as different names. They don't use their pictures. But this is a place where there is virtually everybody. You cannot control that kind of medium.
But even the NBC to has its own, sort of, twisted or could not really regulate as much as it can, given the influence of foreign media on the lives of Nigerians, BBC, Voice of America, Radio France, and the rest of them,
yes,
and how they affect.
But you see, Nigerian media, especially the television industry, must realize that they are competing against the foreign media.
Okay.
What we must do is to check CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, and give Nigerians the same quality in broadcasting. Then people will leave them and come to us.
Okay.
It needs money.
Okay.
We cannot buy documentaries. So we don't use documentaries on NTA. We're producing documentaries to ourselves. And there's no way we can make an impact with that documentary. And our people are sitting with a hunger for foreign news, a hunger for news developments. For instance, the discovery of this Indonesian flight, the disappearance of the Indonesian flight, many people became interested in it. I can't remember the flight number now, but if you imagine there's a documentary that is giving you an idea of what could have happened to that flight. NTA cannot produce that. Channels cannot produce that. AIT cannot produce that. But some producers have done that and have put it into the market. What we need is to fund the organizations so that we'll be able to procure those types of content that is necessary. If we're able to put the content, they will not go to CNN to watch it.
But it's all about money. as you say, when we look at the budget of the media organizations too, it's a problem.
I agree.
What advice would you give to the individual media organizations, especially public-owned, all right, in trying to, get more money within in order to fund some of these projects?
I have looked at a number of stations that we set up, and I have not been able to find enough advertising to sustain a media station very well.
Okay.
And the successful ones are having to delve into other aspects of the economy, and so they pump money into the medium, and then they derive the benefit of publicity to themselves and to some of the industries that they subscribe to. But locally, I don't think that there's enough money to sustain a radio station or a TV station without going into political support for funding. That is the way I look at it. But how do we get out of it? I think that NBC can help by reducing the annual tariff. The annual tariff levied to radio and television stations is too high, and it forces them to begin to look for other ways of making money, and they are hardly breaking even. The license fee is too high, 15 million for an FM station is too high, and the annual fee is also again too high, and then what has happened is that people are forced to run a lean personnel budget, so that you cannot exploit the capacity of talent if you cannot employ the right people to do things. So that's the only way I can do it, by reducing the taxes, regulating the taxes, and reducing the tariffs, so that at least they can have enough money to develop the industry and change their equipment. Every time there is a technical change in the equipment.
Is there no any other way, looking inwards and trying to get, internally generated revenue apart from the adverts and having to bring down the tariffs by the NBC? Is there no any other?
What we must do is to upgrade our production and ensure that as much as we're trying to buy from outside, we also have produced enough to sell to the outside.
Okay.
Because if you produce a good documentary on a Nigerian situation, and there's a lot of situations in Nigeria, the abductions in Zamfara, the Boko Haram continuing saga, there's so much that you can write on, you can do documentaries on, but if you produce them in the international flair, you should be able to also sell it and make up. I think this is another way that established media organizations can seek to have additional revenue.
When you crisscross the social media, you move on from this platform to the other, and you still keep on moving from the other one to the other one. Get to the point and we'll find you there on Daily Trust. And here we are with you on television again. And you find yourself in almost every aspect, talking about consultancy and some other issues, and the mind you have and the spirit you have. It seems journalism is eating you up.
No, I'm eating journalism up.
Right.
It is the reason I'm alive, because I'm doing what I love to do.
Okay.
It enables me to look forward to tomorrow. It gives me hope. And I believe that hope is important. If you have hope and you're looking forward to doing something tomorrow, it helps you to push yourself on. You don't die in the spirit. And until you're dead in the spirit, your body hangs on. Media is life for me. When I was in Radio Television Kaduna, I was in the current affairs department, and daily we wrote commentaries, 5-minute commentaries on a news item. And in that 5 minutes, we gave the editorial opinion of Radio Television Kaduna. It was very powerful. At that time, we could take on the BBC. When General Gawan, immediately after the Civil War, paid a state visit to the UK, we attacked him for doing that. We felt that he should have gone to the Soviet Union, which helped us to fight the war by selling us the MiG fighters. When General Gawan was in the UK, he understood that a radio station in Nigeria and the BBC were attacking one another on the visit, because the BBC quoted us. And the governor of the North Central State, then General Brigadier Abba Kyari, visited the station and heralded us all into one small room. And there we were, a scraggy lot, everybody with a small t-shirt and a pencil in the ear. And he said, "You mean these are the people that embarrassed me?" So I used to write. I had 3 commentaries to write a week, and it became a passion for me.
Wow.
Then when I retired, I kept, once in a while, I would feel like writing on a news item, and I'll write it and just send it to Daily Trust until one day the managing editor called me and said, "Mathias, can you sustain a column in Daily Trust?" I said, "My goodness, I don't know how to do it." They said, "No, just go on doing it the way you're doing." And I said, I really was scared, but I accepted. And on the day that I accepted, I was to write my article and submit it the next day. I had an accident in which I crashed, and when I gained consciousness, I was able to write the article with my phone and kept the date. And the article I wrote was, "Why am I doing this?"
Okay.
I was asking myself, what use is it that I write an article and it is published in the newspaper? What do I change? Do people read? Do they take the suggestions I'm making about how things can be done better? Does it make any impact on the policies of government and all that? And I can only hope so, because many people that I admire, Dan Agbese is one of them, even Al-Bashir, my colleague, was also a prolific writer. Sidi Alis Rajo. They were all people that I looked after. Abdullahi Musa, who taught us how to write the commentary in Bauchi. So if they did that, I felt that if I had them as critics, then I could go on. And I was surprised when I wrote the second article, which was on Metazine and Boko Haram, lessons not learned.
Okay.
I had callers that included the very prominent Nigerians, elderly Nigerians from different parts of the country. And I still do. Every time I write an article, I'm surprised at the feedback. It is a passion for me because I'm committed to a united Nigeria where nobody is discriminated against on the basis of his religion or tribe. I always testify that I was never discriminated against on the basis of my religion and tribe, and I've never felt frustrated. I was taken into Radio Television Kaduna without any references. And I rose up the ranks in NTA until I became general manager NTA Yola without any references. In fact, the person who put in a word for me to be the general manager had the option of putting in the word for his relations, for his kith and kin, the same tribe, the same religion, but he put in the word for me. So I have not been a victim. And as much as people try to make it look like I am a victim, I say no. What we need is to restore the tolerance of one another that we once had. There is enough for all Nigerians to share. Between the farmer and the herder, we can share. There is enough in the land. What we cannot share is any crossing of cultures. If people can give you land for free, you destroy your opportunity if you tell them you're occupying by force. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. If they can give you 10 hectares, if they can give you a whole village, call it your town name. And live there in peace. You destroy the opportunity by saying, "I'm taking it by force." And that is what causes problem. And then when politicians also introduce some of their nocturnal motives, then we can't have peace. And this hurt me. And in every one of my writings, I ensure that we can put our heads together and run a good country that we can inherit for our children too.
How do you feel about the current situation, therefore, given the fact that, as you gave the example with, especially the happenings in Ibadan, and of course all over the north, where you have these bandits and kidnappers and the rest of them having to, be taking toll on people's life and property. Now, this is as a result of intolerance, as you said, and it's, of course, that's just the bottom line. This has eaten deep into the unity of this country, so much so that in spite of what we have made and achieved since 1960, we still have a lot of suspicion.
The reason we have failed and the situation has gotten worse in Nigeria is we have not been able to get the narrative correct.
Okay.
Why is it that we are expressing our angst in violence? and it is registering itself in tribal animosities, religious intolerance. Why is it so? I believe that if we get the narrative right, we can then address the cause of the problem. As it is now, even as we're fighting Boko Haram, we're only fighting the symptom. Because Boko Haram will continue to recruit. If you kill many Boko Haram operators, there are youth coming up. We multiply the number of youth that can be recruited. And indoctrination and arming them with the capacity to use an AK-47 and fire at will does not take a long time. We have to address the nature of the problem. What is it?
When you talk about changing the narratives, if you've been asked now to suggest, how do you want us to change the narrative, what would you say?
It's a big question. One person does not have all the ideas.
Just advice.
But my feeling is that we must address the, first of all, the justice delivery of the government. In Nigeria, the prison is only for poor people. Rich men can flout the law and get away with it. The justice system does not punish the culprits. Now, when a common man cannot find justice, he takes the law into his hands. Number two, you have to regulate people's understanding of matters of faith. Otherwise, people will come in with their understanding, and charisma can pack a lot of people and misdirect them. It happens anywhere. The Guyana tragedy is because one man told them they can all die and go to heaven. And that's what is manifesting itself. So we have to look at all these narratives. The conflict between farmers and herders is something we can manage if only you assure the farmer of the security with which he can cultivate his land, and also assure the herder of access to water and access to grazing land. And this is no tall order. It can be done.
Okay.
Our forefathers did it neatly. We just didn't follow up what they did for to be able to keep the harmonious coexistence between the two warring groups now. But we let it develop until people who had interest in occupation decided to bring in foreigners. And whatever arrangement did, the deal failed. Because many of the herders that are carrying AK-47s now, if you hear what they speak, they are not Nigerians. And I give you an example with my hometown, Numan. We know our herder population. We know who owns what portion of the land. Yet we had difficulties, but that's because there were external influences. Otherwise, the way we lived before, we knew the Tito where they lived. Nobody tampered with them. We know where they stay in Gadagara. We know where they stay in Abare. We know where they stay in Bolon and all that. We know them. We grew up together. Our parents were friends with them. So there is totally no reason for conflict except if people are misguided. And so if you don't have the narrative correctly, like give the farmer his farming land and make sure that the grazer also has access to water. He needs water for his animals, and he has access to grazing land. He needs grass for his animals, and it is in abundance. It is in abundance. When you take off from Yola, you see miles and miles of grazing land with bodies of water.
As far as you can see.
So why are we killing each other for something that God has given us in abundance? I think we need to get the narrative correct so that we can address the problem. I believe that we can have peace if the herder has his land and the farmer has his land. Although Nasir El-Rufai says it has gone very bad because no herder who has collected 3 million for one kidnap will stop now. But it is a crime now. You have to face the crime diligently as a country that has capacity to fight the crime. One terrible problem we have is that once kidnappers take people, nobody is thinking of a professional way of getting the people released. People are thinking more in terms of pay them the ransom. And that is why it has gone bad.
When you say professional way, could you take us or give us an insight into what you mean in addressing this instead of having to, fall back to fear and then just pay and leave?
We need special forces. We need special forces that can negotiate.
All right.
While they're negotiating, another set of special forces are infiltrating. While that is happening, we have to be able to know exactly what we're fighting against. It has happened before. The Israelis flew to Kampala and rescued their people from an airport. Nigerians have that capacity. We ferried our troops to Angola and gave them their country. Again, we ferried our troops to Liberia and forced them to a truce. We again carried our troops to Sierra Leone. Are you telling me that we don't have the capacity to deal with this internal problem?
Okay.
So we can do it professionally if we have the heart and the mind.
All right. I wish we can, and I wish that could be done as soon as possible. And we will not end this program without looking at another side of you, and that is finally, in your media practice, there are instances, experiences you will never forget. Can you take us through one or two of them?
One that immediately comes to my mind is 1983, when it was clear that the National Party of Nigeria did not come out with a clear majority to form a unity government. And it needed the cooperation of the UPN and the NPP.
Right.
That's right. Now, there had to be an amalgam of one or two of the parties with the winning party, MPN. And while the negotiations were going on in the same hotel, negotiations were going on with Waziri Ibrahim in one floor. In another floor, negotiations were going on with the MPP, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, and UPN had opted out. They were not going to participate. They wanted to go straight into the opposition. Now, how it came about that Waziri Ibrahim was outmaneuvered, and the unity that came out was between MPN and the MPP. In the same hotel. Now, standing outside the hotel and looking at what I was covering, and every time I reflect on it.
You are the one covering that there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Every time I reflect on it, it beats my mind how politicians work. I just realized that it was a repeat performance of the 1960. They did exactly that between MPC and Action Group and NCNC. The same scenario played itself, where they were negotiating and nobody knew exactly who carried the day. One woke up to discover that a unity has been formed with the other, and they set up a government. But drawing from it, I think that we have run short of good men. Good men who used to sit down and think of what will promote the unity of Nigeria. We're drifting towards 2023. And no group is sitting down now to say what is the best equation for APC and PDP so that we can have a good contest in 2023. The contest whose primary objective is to guarantee and sustain the unity of Nigeria as one. We need some of our elite leaders to really begin to think about that. And the country needs elders that will look at both flanks. PDP, this is the kind of combination that you need to come out with for the sustenance of the unity of Nigeria. APC, give us this type of combination for the sustenance of Nigeria. If this were to happen, it would be excellent.
All right. On a final note, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, I feared that you would ask that question. I feared that you would ask that question. You only live once. But if you live right, once is enough. I want to be remembered for somebody who managed to pull himself up to a position to provide satisfaction to a larger number of members of the society, literally from nowhere. A child of an evangelist who rose up without shoes like Goodluck Jonathan would say, up to the point of entering high school, and yet growing to be able to mentor people that have become big names in the media industry and things like that. It's a reflection that I think of all the time, but I paraphrase it simply that you only live once.
Yeah.
But if you live right once is enough. I want to be remembered for somebody who lived right.
Well, thank you so much for appearing this program, sir.
My pleasure.
It's our pleasure too.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. A very big thank you to you out there for being part of this package this week. We hope you're going to really be part of it when next week we come your way with a personality, and then we seriously and wholeheartedly believe that you must have at least gotten 1 or 2 lessons out of the life of Chief Timawus Mathias, and then maybe use it in order to make your life better in the future. On behalf of the Chief and of course my crew here, I am Yusuf Rabosman saying, see you next week.